Time now for this week's Health Matters. Paul Critz here in the Fug House with PA Lynn Szabo. And I'm making plans and for the next, I don't know, let's see. So I'm 56 now. So that means I've got at least another 50 years if I play everything right.
That's right.
Is that a medical guarantee from you?
No.
All right, longevity.
We're talking about longevity, yeah.
And I know we're going to hit in this Health Matters on some of the like the blue zone things, which is really interesting to me. So yeah, where do we begin? How do we live forever?
So defining longevity as a long life, but it should be a good life.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the underlying premise. So I've been watching Netflix Live to 100 documentary done really well by Dan Buettner, who has an interest in this and is kind of putting it out there for people. So I think that anybody interested in the topic who has access to Netflix should definitely spend, it's about 4 hours watching the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's in episodes. So, but it introduces the idea of blue zones, which are places in the world where there's a higher than expected number of people who are over 100 years old. Mm-hmm. And the premise, it started off to look at these areas and see what makes this possible for them. But toward the end, spoiler alert, I guess, he starts to look like, he looks at, these are not blue zones the same forever and ever unchangeable. Uh-huh. He looks at what decreases longevity in these blue zones and how you can create a blue zone. So he's actually working in different cities in the United States to increase blue zones. So super exciting.
So is it about, I mean, how much of it is the physical location? How much of it is the actual zone? As opposed to, say, by happenstance, the populace that has come to live in these places?
Well, I think the ones he highlights are, I think the only thing about the actual physical location is that they're kind of all in the temperate zones. They're a little bit closer to the equator.
Okay.
So, but that's not necessarily the ticket. It's not necessarily a genetic thing either. Mm-hmm. So it's not like a population that has some kind of mutant form of hemoglobin, and they're able to, move around better for longer. But the 5 ones he looks at are Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Nicoya, Costa Rica, Icaria, Greece, and Loma Linda.
In Loma Linda, California.
In the United States.
Wow. Okay. So
and you really have to understand that, this is Netflix, and this is an observational program. Okay, it's not even a study, although I imagine studies have come out of it. But surprisingly, when I stepped into the medical library, I didn't really find very much on longevity, like virtually nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just as you mean not on longevity as an endeavor, as like a sort of a field unto itself?
Right.
Okay.
There were only 2 references in the up-to-date library on longevity, which I thought was weird because they're usually pretty thorough. Huh. One was that statins, so medication to lower blood pressure, seems to be associated with longevity, and they don't know why. And then the anti-type 2 diabetes drug metformin seems to be associated with longevity, and they don't really know why. But it's impressive enough data that actually some physicians on the side are taking metformin even though they're not diabetic.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So,
but it hasn't moved beyond that sort of correlation aspect?
No, not at all. In fact, those are 2 drugs that people don't like up here, and there's some negative, not very scientific worldviews out there that those are problematic drugs.
Really?
Yeah. So
I don't know anything about why is that?
I think it's lack of education.
Well, yeah, sure. But what are they saying about the drugs? What's the problem?
They're saying it's big pharma is going to kill us all, and they're super dangerous. And, and a side effect that happens to 1 in 10 million people is like a reason not to take it. Even
Okay. So at the beginning with the whole big pharma thing, I was laughing, but I wasn't laughing to mock these people. I'm like, yup. No, but that's me. The other stuff, that kind of statistical mind game that we play with each other when we assume we are the exception, and so that means that 1 in 10,000 thing is going to get us. That's
it happens, and it's a barrier to care.
Yeah.
It's anxiety and misinformation is a barrier to care.
Huh.
So, but as far as these 5 blue zones that they looked at, what are the overlapping features? So that's part of this story. He looks at each of the areas in detail. He picks out about 4 major things that he thinks are driving the longevity, and then he looks for the commonality in it.
And again, not so, I mean, I imagine some of it he's looking at the physical location and what might be, the environmental follow along, or the environmental causes or factors in with that.
Yeah, actually, that's a big part of it.
But also, I mean, just the social aspect of these populations.
Another big part of it.
Yeah, okay.
So the first thing is almost all of them have plant-based diets, and almost all of them are using food as medicine.
Wow. How so? What's that mean?
So what that means is, specifically looking at the diet in Costa Rica, almost the entire diet is made up of the 3 sisters, so squash, beans, and corn.
I'm sorry. I don't recall ever hearing of are those the 3 staples of like Central America? Is that what we're looking at? Or what are the 3 sisters?
Indigenous populations, because it also extends to the Southwest. It's kind of, I think the observation comes initially from indigenous, but also horticulture, because those 3 plants planted together are somehow mutually more successful.
Really? That's it? What are the 3 plants? I want to write these down. Seriously. What are the 3 plants? Squash.
Yeah, one of my faves. Beans.
What kind of beans? Any beans?
Any beans. Legumes.
Okay.
And corn.
Okay.
Now, he suggests that it's the native, the heirloom varieties. It's not necessarily what's in Safeway.
Well, you're not going to be able to find any corn that's the heirloom varieties. My understanding is even the seeds that are packed away for posterity have been touched by.
Oh, with GMO.
Yeah. From the birthplace of corn, which was basically like Guatemala, right in there.
Right.
And even that sort of genetic heirloom bank of corn, of the corn lineage, has been contaminated already. It was like 20 years ago. I remember reading that they started, they sequence it and they see corporate DNA.
Yeah, like nobody could have seen that coming, huh? Yeah. But he also looks at in Greece, and the location in Greece and the location in Italy also have basically a Mediterranean diet, as you would guess. So heavily vegetable oriented, whole grains, fruits and vegetables, olive oil, super important, and wine. Yeah,
red wine.
Yeah, the location. No, it's not red wine.
Really?
The location in Greece has a traditional wine they've been making for hundreds of years.
Oh, I guess, yeah. That kind of almost like, it's not ouzo, that's like a liquor, but that kind of light grapas wine.
It looked like white wine, but maybe a little more yellow, more like pea, actually.
Really?
But it wasn't, okay.
I don't want to start a rumor about how to live past 100
Yeah,
here.
no, backing up from that. Yeah. So, and that's actually related to the DASH diet, or the study that we have in the United States called Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension, which is really recommending a Mediterranean diet. Super in vogue right now.
Has been for a while, too.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not just like one of those things that, like, the Atkins diet that comes and goes. I mean, Mediterranean thing is sort of like found its way into.
Yeah, that study from the DASH study, I think, is at least 20 years old. But a lot of people with hypertension in this community have no idea about it. You could dump your medication if you were perfect at this diet.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
I mean, barring any sort of genetic causes to your hypertension?
Yeah. Or, maybe environmental things like methamphetamine or something.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Wow.
So, but Mediterranean diet, super important. Natural movement, this is also being embraced right now. I don't know if my algorithm on my feed is all of a sudden blowing this up, but I've seen a lot of it since I started looking at this. People are actually up and doing something every 20 minutes.
Every 20 minutes, wow.
Yeah, so you're not really sitting in front of a screen for a bunch of hours, in an office situation. You're up tending to children. You're up doing the dishes. You're up trying to get the garbage out.
Right?
You're walking the dog. Yeah. Oh, my God. Having a life.
Having a life and working your life actually makes your life longer? Wait a minute.
Yeah. And so one of the things they noted, a lot of these locations have people mostly walk to get from place to place, like that they're going to go visit a friend, or oftentimes going to church. And they're walking, these little ladies, these tiny little old ladies are walking up hills, like most of us would be like, really? Can't we just like drive?
Isn't
Yeah. So also
got
the
an
other thing,
e-scooter.
the other thing in Okinawa is that the average Japanese home, at least in that area, people sit on the floor, and so you're actually standing and reaching and twisting because you have your stuff kind of all around you on low shelves, right? And so that's actually a workout.
Yeah. I guess you're working your core every time you get up or down, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so like 20 times a day, they do 20 crunches because they're standing up. And they're pretty agile. They're really good at it. Moving around, they're not sore. They're, well, I suppose some of them are, but they're not, pain doesn't limit their mobility.
Right.
They also have gardens. This was one in Okinawa. And they spend an hour or two every day in the garden.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Just outside and in nature.
Way more fun than the gym. I would think.
Yeah. And that's one thing I want to point. I mean, a lot of people, they go to the gym and they're doing things and that kind of culture, that fitness workout culture in the US where you're pushing yourself. You got to get beyond these bounds.
Right.
You know, you've got to push the envelope. You've got to, so you can get bigger and stronger and faster. And all that.
Right.
But that's not the kind of working out we're just talking about.
You
going
need
through
like
your
a
day.
gentle, persistent instead of a limited time frantic.
Right.
Is kind of, and actually they brought out a lot of people have gym memberships in the United States, never use them. So it's a big money industry, but not really super utilized.
Right.
Yeah. So the other thing that's important is social connections like church, family, and in Japan, we talked about that last time I saw you. There's a group of older people who in their younger days make a commitment to be a special cohort of friends who are not only, supportive of each other in a friendship kind of way, but also even a monetary way and even a sharing work kind of way. And that cohort is lifelong. You make a commitment when you're really young.
And this isn't some little, this just happened this way. This is part of the society. At the age of 5, you're assigned to a cohort. And you can change if you don't like them later on. But you always have like 4 other people in your life who are there to help you if need be.
Right.
That's wonderful. That's really cool.
Yeah, they talked to this one woman in particular about it, and she said after she retired, she was bored, so she established her cohort.
Oh, wow.
And now they kind of run around and do things together, and it's not necessarily segregated by gender either, which I thought was interesting because
is it by age? I mean, is it like ages?
Kind of ages.
Yeah.
But they referenced one of their cohort was in the hospital and the ways they were supporting him, So I think that's also kind of replicated in some of the other blue zones, but in an extended family sense. So elders that go into assisted living facilities, they automatically lose 6 years on the average.
Wow.
Ones that stay around their families and are supported by their families, they don't necessarily have to live together, but living in proximity, that disadvantage seems to go away.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like a joyful extended family.
Yeah.
I imagine they get into their stuff and like remember when, but the people that they interviewed were all very loving together. Yeah. And I think that particular family they were looking at in Italy, they're not necessarily... It's an extended family, so I don't think that woman who was the center elder actually had children. These were children whose lives she impacted.
Oh my God! Wow.
So anybody who's been at the mothering game for a period of time knows that you have the children that you birth, and then you have the children that kind of come to you that life brings you.
Right.
And I think that was more of that kind of situation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Super exciting. That was another thing that happened with Loma Linda in the Seventh-day Adventists. So the church is not only a spiritual presence in people's lives, it's a friendship presence, it's a social presence. They do sports together.
So
they have potlucks together.
We haven't discussed that before. That's kind of came out of nowhere. That of the you've got the Japanese, the friend groups and things in Okinawa. In Loma Linda, this community here in California where there's a much higher than average older person population, people living beyond their years, but they are overwhelmingly, that population specifically in Loma Linda, they are overwhelmingly Seventh-day Adventists.
Right.
Which is, it's not every blue zone is Seventh-day Adventist. It's just for some reason, this all comes together in Loma Linda, California. And so what sorts of things about their life? I mean, socially, of course.
Well, they have great health care.
How so?
Well, they're Loma Linda.
Because they're retirees in America. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
and they have the society, the kind of structure and lattices that you need because of the structured nature of the church. But then they're also vegetarians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not all of them.
Really?
Like 85% though. So the majority
is it like if you wanna kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
But you get peer pressure.
You can be a lapsed Seventh-day Adventist eating a taco.
No, yeah, that's right. Shh, don't tell God. But yeah, they seem very devoted to it. They also have a day of rest that they're on Saturday that they're very specifically. It's important to them to follow that. Yeah, and so they follow it closely. And they also have kind of like sports clubs where they go and they do pickleball together. Or, they great. Go and then afterwards they might have like a communal meal, which of course is mostly vegetarian. So, and that's working for them. I don't know about drugs and alcohol, whether smoking and alcohol is, or any other kind of drugs. I don't know what the peer pressure is on that, but I would imagine it's, don't do that. So they also have a really, really close network with God. They feel their spirituality very deeply. I mean, that kind of makes sense. But they found in general that people who go to church more than once a week add on 7 years.
Wow.
I know. So there's no hope for us, I guess.
Nope. Damn, we got to do it other ways.
I know.
We got to just make up that on the other
Well, that's why we go hiking on Sunday.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
You got to take a forest.
It didn't necessarily say a Christian church.
There is a part on the lake, out at the Lake Earl Wildlife Area. There's a part on the Cadra Point Loop that I call the Cathedral. And it's very much a holy place to me. And I always kind of walk through it and try to be a little reverent, a little more than I, ordinarily am. And so it's I don't know, it's a special place. Yeah. But I don't know. Does that count? Does that give me like 3.5?
I don't know. There were no definitions.
I know.
In that statement.
I want more. I want it written out, in bullet items, what I need to do.
Okay. I've got those. Funny you should say.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so other important points. Definitely most of these communities are non-smokers. Okay, and they're largely vaccinated. Actually, the Costa Rica community. This is where I thought was super cool. They have this 100-year-old guy who's actually kind of a cowboy. He's right. He still herds cattle and stuff.
Oh my God.
But they sent a nice nurse type person out on a little motorbike to give him his immunization. So they arrive at his home, and that's not like just driving a mile or two. But this is like dirt roads, very rural.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the national government, with 1/15 of the budget of the United States per capita, okay, it's a smaller country. That's per capita, is able to assist these people in growing older.
Wow.
And not only with the number of years, but the quality of life.
And their social fabric and their political reality doesn't fall apart as they tumble into the abyss of communism in this way?
Well, they wouldn't call it communism. They would call it common sense. Okay.
Very nice.
So, yeah. It was
what does loving freedom get us?
Well, it depends whose freedom you love, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So all of these people pretty much had a normal body mass index. There were not a lot of, especially people in Japan, appeared to be shorter and thinner. But this was also the generation that went through World War II. Okay, right. So they had starvation. So shorter doesn't. I can explain shorter, but I think thinner is just better dietary choices.
Right.
So, and then, but they all looked, like they were moving really well. They weren't fazed by what was going on in their life. You could give them a task and it wouldn't be like, oh, that's going to hurt my back. None of that. They were just living their life.
Wow. Now, and it needs to be said too. I think that if you're Japanese and let's just say you're looking to live longer than anybody else on planet Earth, you kind of have a head start. I mean, what's the life expectancy for a Japanese woman? Last I heard was like 86 or something ridiculous.
I know, but that's changing. We'll get to that.
Oh,
that's
okay.
changing.
Okay.
So the other thing is the social interaction. So families are really supportive of their elders. And that we have as an example here in a lot of the Native population.
Yeah.
Elders are really important to the Native people here, and they take good care of them for the most part.
We saw that during the pandemic, the Native population.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first people we immunized were elders.
Yeah, their whole community sort of circled around the elders. Yeah.
Yeah, elders and medical people.
Right.
So the next thing is they do things that are important to maintain a healthy ability to balance themselves so they don't fall. And in Japan, they demonstrated that Tai Chi was really important.
Okay.
Actually. But exercise in general, when you're sitting on the floor and you're kind of reaching constantly to get things, that strengthens your core and helps your balance. So they talked a little bit about how to condition your body so that you avoid fall risk. So there's a couple of ways to do that here, and we have talked about movement here, and that was kind of a distant one, but maybe that needs to be revisited. Super important. A lot of elderly people are advised to brush their teeth standing on one leg.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's the thing for postmenopausal women, especially.
Is barefoot a part of that? I remember that being a part of that discussion.
Barefoot's part of it too.
Right.
I like the Tai Chi idea. You could totally get like a 10-minute Tai Chi video on YouTube. No problem there. The other thing is they do dual tasking. So that no, they do kind of monotasking. They don't do dual tasking. So they get an idea. They have a like I'm going to go to the kitchen and get a drink of water, but it's not like I'm going to bring these dirty dishes on the way and I'm going to see if I can get the dog to go out. It's like they have a task, they do it, they get it done, they move on to the next one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they're kind of central task focused.
That's nice. That would change the way I walk across rooms.
So, yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They also specifically work on their shoulder flexibility.
Really?
Yeah. And so there's an exercise called back scratch where you try and meet your hands
together?
in the middle of your back.
Yeah.
With one goes around the shoulder and one goes around your waist, and you're trying to. And I actually can do that. I didn't used to be able to do it, but I tried it on the way here, and I could. Not while I was driving, but at the recycling center, in case you were wondering. But yeah, I'm able to do that, and that makes people being able to reach, which is kind of an exercise for core. So I'll possibly balance. I bet you could argue that. So the other thing, though, that I thought was really cool is they all have a sense of what their life plan is. So they get up every morning and they kind of know what's going on. So whether they're at work or whether they're involved in like a family event, or they know that they're going to go to church, and then they're going to maybe make some bread, and then they're, maybe going to work on the garden for an hour or two. And then, the kids are coming over after school and they have to keep an eye on them while the mom is, doing something else. Anyway, you get my point.
Yeah.
They know where they are in their life plan on a day basis, but also they're looking forward to the future. So they kind of have a reason to live, a reason to keep moving forward,
like in every moment, like that.
Right.
Yeah. That even goes down to if you're performing a task during the day and having that task as your goal right then.
Right.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah, we don't really do that. I mean, I kind of do because my life is structured. You
Right.
know. I know where I am every 15 minutes during a workday. But
I don't know. I don't know if people can help but to do that. I just don't think we do that well. And I think our society actively fights against us living out those goals.
I think we do the plan that somebody else sets out for us.
That's another, yeah.
That's the thing. So I think it has to be a more personalized plan. Even if you're going to do quote unquote air quotes self-care and have it, a day is not necessarily free form.
Yeah.
It's structured.
Yeah.
But it's structured by the individual. And then and of course, that what comes from that is they enjoy the moment and they think positively and they embrace joy. I mean, there's like, I'm going to go visit my friend. Okay, I got to walk up this hill. I'll just kind of scoot up this hill and there's not like, oh, it's a hill. It's like, hey, I get to go see my friend.
Right,
and this
right.
is the most expedient way to get there. So I think that kind of, central joy in every day is super important. So I'd recommend people watch Netflix, Live to 100.
Live to 100. Okay.
Yeah, it was only about 4 hours, 4 episodes. Toward the end of it, so spoiler alert, he starts talking about Okinawa's kind of being, kind of changing their lifestyle, at least of the younger people. And like, there's more fast food moving in and there's less, they're more Americanized,
Yeah.
I guess you could say. And their blue zone is actually shrinking, which is kind of a bummer because they figured out how to do it right. And they don't realize now that they're moving away from that, or maybe they do. I don't know. I don't live there. But, it got them through a really hard time in World War II. Really, really hard. And kind of the opposite side of that coin is, can you create could this guy come to Crescent City assuming buy-in from the community, and could he guide us along to longer life, better health, just using this kind of blue zone observational data?
So you said you had like a list of things to do, and I know we've been working through this list, and the bullet items of things to do to live past 100. Some of them seem like, you could totally, just as far as diet and exercise and sort of lifestyle things,
Right.
that kind of outward facing lifestyle thing. But being a positive person. How do you?
If you start to feel better, that's a little easier.
That might be, exactly. But I can't. Wow, I mean, because I don't know. I think that can also. That seems almost like that. There's a lot of that's just genetic too. Being positive, being negative.
It also could be vitamin D3.
Yeah.
So
either
maybe
one, right?
that's why they're seeing it more toward the equator. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, so Okinawa's not anywhere near the equator.
Okay, but their blue zone is shrinking.
But it didn't used to be near the computer.
I mean, that would be hard for me to. They have a kind of purple yam or blue yam potato that they make. That's prominent in their cuisine, and I'm looking at it going, not doing that.
I'm not.
So, not a fan of yams.
That's the whole the squash bean corn thing. It's like I could do the beans and corn.
But I like the idea of being a little lady scurrying around.
Yeah. I like the idea of being, say, in your 80s or 90s and being able to get up off the floor by yourself.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
it is. And they showed more than just getting up off the floor. The guy was like a 100-year-old gymnast, man.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was laughing all through it. He thought it was hysterical.
Maybe shooting for Okinawa, and we shouldn't do that. Maybe let's just keep it close. We can move to Loma Linda. I mean, that would be more attainable.
Ew. I don't go down south of Ukiah without great reason. But okay, we could bring it up here. I mean, there is a Seventh-day Adventist community up here.
How much of all this? This is an interesting thing, and it's a stupid thing to bring up with just a couple of minutes left. But how much of this is tied to income? How well off are these communities? How secure financially are these communities?
One of it is a little mountain village in Italy, Sardinia, and then the Greek one. I mean, it looks like where we would love to go on vacation, but they didn't strike me as they were housed.
Yeah,
they lived in, especially the one in Greece, had like the roads look like something Shakespearean.
Yeah, right.
And there are definitely no cars on them. And, so no, it was modest. And they were living there because the town started because they were pushed out of the area by, other groups of people like the Romans. And so that was a marginal environment.
Yeah, no. Sardinia has been its own thing ethnically and linguistically and everything going back like thousands of years. But, so in Loma Linda, are affluent American retirees buying a blue zone with their better health care and their better diet and lifestyle choices because they have that sort of privilege in California, United States?
I think the Loma Linda community has some privilege, but they also have deep spirituality.
Yeah, that's true. That's something you can't buy. But, but maybe that balances against,
they actually had the most diversity of ethnicity.
Right. So, but exactly. So maybe that's the balance against the kind of lifestyle. If you can't go live in a Greek or Italian or Sardinian village in the mountains someplace and eat your olives off the tree, you can buy it at Olive Garden in the U.S. if you have the right health care. And then following along, you have the social structure that you need and you have all of those things. But basically, you're buying that privilege, that lifestyle, that part of that is just coming to these people who were born in villages in Sardinia.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So it's possible is what I'm getting at.
It is possible. They look like lovely places to live.
Right.
All of them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
I don't know that you could have a vineyard from antiquity that made these special grapes in volcanic soil, and you had 100-year-old amphora that you were fermenting wine in.
Right.
I mean, some of it's not really. I don't think you buy that.
Yeah, no, that's not scalable. No.
Right. But having a woman be a central part of a family, even though these children that are surrounding her are not really biologically her children, but definitely spiritually her children. I mean, that looked like she achieved a great peace.
Right.
So kindness, it's not so hard,
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, all right. Well, thank you very much. I want to go watch this Netflix documentary. It is, what was the guy's name? Dan Buettner?
Buettner.
Live to 100 on Netflix.
4 episodes, an hour each. I've already watched it 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah,
Explore
I found
the
it
Blue
quite
Zone.
enchanting.
You can also find shorter content on YouTube just about the Blue Zones too, which I found out about. So, all right, that's it. Any looking forward to next week's Health Matters? Any idea?
I'm looking at HIPAA. I think it's a barrier to care. I might make that argument.
Okay. All right. I can see that. Okay. All right. I'll look forward to that. Until next time, this has been Health Matters. Thank you, Lynn.